Chapter 2. Can You Steal? Sherlock was an athletic boy with long legs. Soccer was a game he had learned to play back on a muddy field in Blunney. He and his friends had used the same kind of ball, a tin can wrapped in rags. There were 8 boys playing. Sherlock made 9. One boy volunteered to sit the game out so that Sherlock could join it. Though it was hot, the boy was wearing a grown-up's tattered jacket that was too big for him and made it hard to run. After a while, the boys stopped the game and stood looking at Sherlock and whispering. Then they formed a circle around him and studied him carefully. "He's thin enough," the biggest boy said. "He'll fit," said someone else. "Fit where?" Sherlock asked. "Are you hungry?" the boy in the jacket asked. "Yes," Sherlock said. He had forgotten that he was. "Moshele," the boy said to the boy with the jacket. "Give him a piece." Now Sherlock saw that the pockets of the jacket were bulging. Moshele glanced up and down, saw that no one was watching, took out a sausage from one pocket and a pocket knife from the other, and cut a thick slab of it for Sherlock. He hadn't had such a treat in a long time. "Stick with us," the big boy said. "When it's dark, we'll lower you through a basement window into a store that has more sausages like this one. It's too small for any of us to fit through, but you might make it. Can you steal?" Sherlock shrugged. He could steal. He could do anything for more sausage. I want some more," he said. "Should I give him some, Uncle?" "Give him some," the big boy said. The boys went on playing until it began to get dark. Then they hid their ball underneath a pile of junk and set out on the run, darting around the pedestrians in the street. When they reached a bricked-up doorway, they stopped to wait for the night curfew to begin. From the way the streets were emptying, they knew it would be soon. Meanwhile, Moshele took out the sausage and cut a piece for everyone. When they had eaten, he took out some cigarettes and matches, cut each cigarette in half, and passed the halves out importantly. The 2 biggest boys each got their own cigarette. "Do you smoke?" Moshele asked Sherlock. "No." "You have to, if you want to join the gang." His brother David had once tried getting him to take a drag on a cigarette. It was bitter and made him cough and choke. "I'd rather not," he said. "Leave him alone," Uncle told Moshele. A well-dressed man passed by. One of the boys approached him and said, "Please, mister, can you spare some change? We're hungry." The man looked at them and snapped, "You bums! How come you have enough money for cigarettes?" The street was soon deserted. It was time to go into action. The store they planned to break in to faced an alleyway. The window was very small. "Start shouting," the uncle said. All the boys began to shout as if they were fighting. Under the cover of the noise, Yankel took a stone and smashed the window. Someone looked down from a top floor and yelled, "You bums, get out of here!" "All right, ma'am," Michele said. They moved off and came back a few minutes later. Yankel stuck his hand through the window and removed the broken glass. Then Sherlock was tied to a rope. He wriggled through the window and Yankel lowered him carefully. "Hey, Red," he called softly. "Leave the rope on and coil it around you. Tell me what you see down there." Sherlock tried to make out his surroundings, but it was too dark to see anything. "Nothing," he called up. "Michele," Yankel said, annoyed. "Why didn't you give him a box of matches?" "Why didn't you give him one yourself?" A box of matches landed on the floor. Sherlock groped for it, found it, and lit a match. "Do you see any sausage?" "No," he said. "Just bottles." "Vodka?" "How can you tell?" "It says." I can't read." "Pass one up through the window." He found a chair, put it beneath the window, and stood on it, and reached as high with the bottle as he could. "Great! How many more are there like there? How many more like these are there?" "I see 2. There might be one more in the closet, but it's locked. Look for cigarettes." It wasn't very different from going through the garbage with Mother, but the results were better. Cigarettes, matches, several bottles of vodka, and 2 whole sausages hidden under the counter. Yankel told him to put the cigarettes and matches in his pockets and pass up the end of the rope. "Quick!" Sherlock was yanked upward just in the nick of time. The footsteps of the night patrol were approaching. The gang took to its heels. That means they ran away. The boys knew the neighborhood and the buildings that had no gatekeeper. At night, they slept in empty lofts. The best lofts were the ones with old rags or discarded mattresses that they could sleep on. If they couldn't find a loft that wasn't locked, they bedded down on the stairs. They found a loft that was open, a match scratched, and a candle was lit. Michele, Sirlik said, I have more matches in my pockets. Hold on to them, Michele answered. My pockets are stuffed full. Michele took out some bread, and they sat down to eat. The menu was more sausage, bread, and water. Then they lay down to sleep. Sherlock found a beat-up old mattress and dragged it over to Yankel's. One of the boys tried grabbing it from him. Hey, Red, that's my mattress, he said. Leave him alone, Yankel threatened. It's his now. Yankel went to a crate in the corner of the loft and pulled out the remains of an old army coat. Here, he said to Sherlock. Use it as a blanket. Sherlock felt grateful for being taken under Yankel's wing. Lights out, Michele announced. One more minute, just a minute, voices called out. Put out the candle, Yankel said. Michele wet his 2 fingers in his mouth and snuffed out the flame. It was pitch dark. Darkness covered the streets of the Warsaw Ghetto. Since the German invasion of Russia, there was a blackout every night. In winter, when skies were cloudy and it got dark before the curfew, people bumped into each other on the street. In the street, someone had the idea of coating pins with phosphorus, and whoever could afford one wore a pin that glowed in the dark. The pins came in human and animal shapes: dogs, cats, butterflies, birds, and even chimney sweeps. Sherlock envied whoever had one. Although he begged his father for one, there was no money. And then one day he found a butterfly pin in the garbage. The more he left in sunlight during the day, the more it shone at night. He would put it on the windowsill where it caught the sun's rays peeping over the roofs of the houses. At night, it gave off a greenish glow. He could even see the tips of his fingers if he held them close to it. It was quiet in the loft once the candle was snuffed out. They could hear the tenants of the building talking in muffled voices, the sounds of pots and dishes being washed, the creaking and banging of doors, and steps from the courtyard below. Sherlock took out his shiny butterfly to push back the darkness, as he always did before falling asleep. Even after he shut his eyes, the world was less black then. There was enough light to remember the dream of all the things he had seen during the day. What do you have there? Yankel asked. A glow pin, Sherlock said. Let me see it. Sherlock groped for Yankel's hand to give it to him. I found it in the garbage. You did a good day's work, Sherlock, Yankel said, handing it back to him. What will you do with the vodka? Sell it. There was a moment's silence. Then Yankel asked, How come you joined us? I was looking for food in the garbage with my mother. She disappeared. Yankel sat up. You have a mother? He asked wonderingly. Yes, Sherlock said. He didn't see anything so special about it. Word spread through the loft that the red-headed boy had a mother. All the boys gathered around him. They wanted to hear about her. What did she look like? What did she give him to eat? Is she pretty? Sherlock couldn't say what his mother looked like. He had never thought if she was pretty or not. Yes, she said. She's not dead? No, he felt sure of that. Then where is she? I guess at home. Then why aren't you with her? I don't know how to get there. You don't know the name of the street? No, he said sadly. You're not from Warsaw? No, we're from Blani. The Warsaw Ghetto was large, not like the little ghetto in Blani. It had tall buildings and lots of streets. His new friends, he was told, came from the countryside too. Some of them had been separated from their parents during their deportation to Warsaw. Try to think, Yankel said. If you can remember where your house is, we'll find your mother for you. Where's your mother? Sherlock asked. She's dead. My father died too, in Warsaw. Sherlock stretched out on his mattress. He wasn't used to sleeping by himself. He would have given anything to be in one bed again with his brother David, who always kicked him and pulled the blanket. He could picture their building clearly, the entrance, the rickety wooden stairs, the door of their apartment, which was never shut during the day because of all the people coming in and out. He just couldn't remember how to get there, even though he could see his mother as though she were in front of his eyes. It was weird how someone could be so close and yet so out of reach. Before he knew it, it was morning. The biggest boys went out to sell the vodka and cigarettes and bought bread and sugar with the money. Shirley took a piece of bread, wet it, and dipped it in the sugar. The bread wasn't sliced as neatly as his mother's, but it tasted the same. The boys brought him to their friend, Yone, the shoemaker, who sometimes made them tea in exchange for sugar. He was working in the doorway of a little chubby cubby hole that was in his shoe shop. We have a new gang member, Yankel said, introducing Shirley. Yoni glanced up at him. Shirley smiled. The shoemaker reached out a calloused hand and gently shook Shirley's chin. God has given you what not many people have, son, he said, looking first at Shirley's face and then at his shoes. I'm too busy today, but come another time and I'll mend your shoes for you. He has a mother, Yankel said. He just doesn't know where she lives. Yane frowned, telling Shirley to sit. He asked what his street looked like. Like a street, Shirley said. Do you remember the number of the house? Yes, 10. And the name of the street? No. Look at that. Yonik pointed at a street sign. Did you have one on your street? Shirley looked at the sign and shook his head in sorrow. He couldn't remember. I'll go to the police, Yane said. Maybe someone reported you missing. And you, he told the uncle, should take him around the ghetto. Maybe you'll hit the right street by chance. They finished their tea. Yankel took Shirley and they crisscrossed back and forth through the crowded streets of the ghetto. Maybe this street, Yankel asked at each corner. No, Shirley answered each time. In the end, they gave up and rejoined the gang. Shirley was getting used to the new way of life, sleeping in lofts, roaming streets, shoplifting by day, and breaking into stores before the curfew. The boys kept up their soccer games near the garbage bins where Shirley lost his mother. Each time they returned there, Shirley looked to see whether his mother was waiting for him. Yone kept his promise and went to the Jewish ghetto police, but no child had been reported missing. There was just a long list of nameless children who had died in the streets and were known only by the address of the houses by which they were found. Whenever rovings brought them to a new part of the ghetto, Yankel asked, Shirley, was it near here? Shirley would look hard at his surroundings. He never recognized them. If he had stayed with Yankel's gang long enough, he might have found his house in the end. But one day, there were shouts in the streets accompanied by the harsh whistles of the ghetto police. A roundup! This was something new. The shouts came from men and women running from the police. They wanted to warn others. The street emptied at once. Yankel led the gang through some backyards to another street. Let's ask Yone, he said. Maybe he knows what it's about. Yone was mending a shoe stretched upside down on a shoehorn. Everyone's shouting, round up, Yankel told him. Yane nodded sadly. The Jewish police, he said, are rounding up Jews for the Germans and putting them on trains. It looks like they're planning to empty the ghetto. Trains for where? Resettlement. Where? Yone pointed a finger at the sky and moved his shoemaker's tools into his cubbyhole. I'm closing, he said. I have a wife and children to worry about. You boys should get out of the ghetto. Where to? The Polish side. I was already there, Shirley said. The Germans caught us. Get out, Yone repeated. He locked the door, glanced at the keys in his hand, put them in his pocket, and went off. The boys sat on the sidewalk talking things over. The gate to the ghetto always has wagons by it, Yankel said. They come to haul away the garbage. Maybe we can hide in them. He led them to the gate. They followed him somberly, stopping to survey it from afar. There were 2 German soldiers armed with rifles and 4 policemen, 2 Poles on the Polish side and 2 Jews on the Jewish side. The wagons, hitched to horses, stood inside the gate. First one to make it through, Yankel said, gets out at the corner and waits for the rest of us. If there are more than 2 of us, you'll have to hide. For how long? for as long as it takes to get us all across. If we don't all make it, go without us. Where? Search me. They split up. Shirley inched toward the wagons, which stood parked in a row inside the gate. One began to move. He jumped onto the back and burrowed into the pile of garbage. The smell didn't bother him. The farmer whose wagon it was heard the sound and turned around. For a second, as Shirley disappeared, their eyes met. The farmer hesitated. Then Shirley heard the crack of his whip and the cry, "Giddy up!" The wagon lurched over some cobblestones and stopped. There were Polish and German voices, and then they set out again. A German shouted behind them, "Halt!" The wagon came to a stop. A soldier ran toward it on studded boots. He made a German remark, and Shirley felt something cold slide past his right leg, rip his pants, and slice into the heap of garbage. It withdrew and plunged back in 2 more hair-raising times. Once close to his head. "Get a move on," the German said in Polish. "There's no boy in here." And there, the wagon set out. The rattle of the wheels and the clip-clop of the horses' hooves made Shirley feel hopeful. But now came more shouts, this time far away. The wagon stopped once more. Shirley raised himself and peered out of the rear. The German soldier and a Polish policeman were running toward them, shouting and waving their hands. The farmer leaned back, yanked the frightened boy from his place, and set him down on the road. Shirley's first instinct was to run. The farmer said, "Don't move, boy. I'll get you out of here." The policeman and the soldier were coming closer. Shirley froze. A shiver ran through him. The farmer bent over the horse with a knife and cut the harness strap. He swung Shirley onto the horse and mounted behind him, and they galloped off. 2 shots rang out. Shirley tried turning to look, but the farmer gripped him tightly. When he finally caught a glimpse over his shoulder, the gate of the ghetto had vanished, as had the soldier and policeman, and the wagon. After a while, the horse slowed to a trot. The farmer relaxed his grip, and Shirley breathed a sigh of relief. It was the first horse he'd ever ridden in his life. They left the city behind them. Before long, they were riding through fields with woods on either side. Now and then they passed a solitary cottage. After a while, they came to a village with thatch-roofed houses. Each house had a vegetable garden and some fruit trees, and small buildings around it. Shirley saw horses, cows, pigs, and chickens in the farmyards. Wash hung from laundry lines, and here and there an empty pot was drying upside down on a fence post. They rode through the village. A barking dog chased them. A woman sitting in a doorway with a child watched them go by. Boys played soccer on the road. The farmer reined the horse to a walk to keep it from kicking dust at them. He didn't speak, neither did Shirley. They left the village. Another village appeared on the horizon, and the farmer stopped and pointed. Shirley looked and saw several boys dressed in rags by a stream that sparkled in the sunlight. The boys noticed and dived into reeds along the bank. "Those are Jewish children," the farmer said. "Go to them." He dismounted and helped Shirley down, then took 2 cubes of sugar and a piece of bread from his pocket. He gave Shirley 1 cube and the bread and fed the other cube to the horse, patting its neck fondly. Putting his hand on Shirley's head, he made the sign of the cross over his head. "May the Mother of God look after you." He mounted his horse and rode off. Shirley watched him go. He wanted to wave goodbye, but the farmer didn't turn around. Should he eat the bread and sugar together, or first one then the other? He decided to eat the bread first. He chewed it and watched the farmer grow smaller in the distance and vanish around a bend in the road. Then he ate the sugar.